I was 38 years old when my life ended. At least, that's what it felt like. One morning, I was a man with a good job, a small apartment, and a quiet life. The next, I was standing in front of a judge, accused of something I didn't do. The world doesn't slow down when it crushes you. It just keeps moving, while you stand there, trying to understand how everything fell apart. They said I stole money from the company I worked for. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. I didn't even have a lawyer at first. I thought it was a mistake that would be cleared up in a day or two. But mistakes have a way of becoming your reality when no one believes you. The trial lasted only 3 weeks. I remember the sound of the gavel. The word guilty. And then, silence. When they closed the cell door behind me for the first time, I realized something. No one was coming to save me. At night, I lay on the hard bed and tried to replay everything in my head. Maybe if I had said something different. Maybe if I had hired a better lawyer. Maybe if I had been a different person. But in prison, maybe doesn't matter. Only time does. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. And months into years. I learned quickly that in prison, you either break, or you learn how to live with the pain. I saw men lose themselves, in anger, in drugs, in hate. And I felt it too. That fire. That voice inside screaming that life was unfair. But one night, something changed. I was sitting alone in the yard, looking at the moon through the fence. It hit me, the only thing they really took away from me was freedom. Not who I was. Not what I believed. So I started writing. At first, just letters to myself. Then stories, thoughts, dreams. I wrote about the person I used to be, and the one I hope to become. The guards laughed. Some inmates mocked me. But I didn't care. Writing gave me air when I felt like drowning. Years passed. And somehow, I became the guy others came to for advice. They called me the preacher, though I wasn't religious. I just listened. And for the first time in years, I started to believe I could be more than the number on my uniform. Then, after 11 years, the day came. My lawyer, a young woman who had taken my case pro bono, found evidence that proved my innocence. The real thief had confessed. When the guard opened the cell and said, "Pack your things," I couldn't move. My body forgot how. Freedom felt unreal. When I stepped outside the prison gates, the world felt too big, too bright, too loud. I had imagined that moment 1,000 times, but reality was quieter. The air smelled different. The people moved faster. And somehow, I felt smaller. I had no one waiting for me. No family. No job. Just a plastic bag with a few papers and the clothes they gave me on release day. For the first few nights, I slept in a shelter. It was strange, being free but still feeling trapped. People avoided eye contact when they found out I was an ex-convict. Some even crossed the street. But I didn't blame them. They didn't know the truth. They only saw what the world told them to see. So I decided to start from nothing. Literally nothing. Every morning, I walked from street to street, looking for work, for any place that would give me a chance. Most doors closed before I even finished my sentence. Until one day, I met an old mechanic named Bill. He owned a small car repair shop on the edge of town. He looked at me, then at my hands, scarred, rough, but steady. And he said, "You ever fix an engine before?" I said no. He nodded once and handed me a wrench. That was it. No paperwork. No judgment. Just a tool and a chance. At first, I swept floors. Cleaned oil spills. Carried boxes. But every evening, Bill taught me a little more. How to listen to an engine. How to fix what's broken instead of throwing it away. And maybe that's what I was really doing, learning how to fix myself. Months passed. The work was hard, but honest. And for the first time in years, I slept without nightmares. Then one afternoon, Bill got sick. He was old, tired, and had no family to run the shop. Before he passed away, he told me, "Keep this place alive, kid. You've earned it." So I did. I worked 12-hour days. Saved every dollar. And slowly, the shop became mine. I painted the walls. Fixed the roof. Hung an old sign above the door that read, "Second Chance Auto." It wasn't just a name. It was my story. People started coming in. First a few. Then more. And with every car I fixed, I felt a piece of my old self coming back. I wasn't the man who went to prison anymore. I was the man who survived it. The man who built something from nothing. Running that little repair shop wasn't easy. Some nights, I stayed long after sunset, covered in grease, listening to the hum of engines that still refused to start. But I loved it. Every broken part I fixed felt like a victory. Word started to spread. People liked that I was honest. That I worked hard, treated them with respect, and never overcharged. They didn't know my story, at least, not at first. But the truth has a way of showing up. One afternoon, a local reporter came by. She wanted to do a small feature on local businesses rebuilding the community. Her name was Sarah. She asked about the shop, about Bill, about how I started. And when I told her I was an ex-convict, she didn't flinch. She just nodded and said, "Then this story matters even more." The article came out a week later. "From Prison to Purpose, the man who rebuilt his life." It went viral in our small town. People began stopping by, not just for repairs, but to talk. They brought coffee, old friends, even strangers. Some shared their own stories, about loss, addiction, divorce, failure. And for the first time in my life, I realized something powerful. Success isn't just money or fame. It's connection. It's the ability to turn your scars into something that helps others heal. Sarah kept visiting the shop. Sometimes for work, sometimes just to talk. We'd sit on the hood of an old car at night, drink coffee, and watch the streetlights flicker. She once asked me, "Do you ever wish you could go back?" I said, "No. If I went back, I'd lose who I became." A year later, we got married. It was nothing fancy, a small ceremony behind the shop, just us, a few friends, and the smell of motor oil in the air. But it was perfect. Because for once, life felt real. Not borrowed. Not surviving. Just living. The shop kept growing. We hired new mechanics. Some of them were like me, people with records, with mistakes. I gave them the same chance Bill gave me. And watching them rebuild their lives, that was success in its purest form. Still, part of me couldn't forget what happened. The years I lost. The people who turned away. The system that failed me. But I learned something important: holding on to anger doesn't punish the past. It only poisons the present. So I let it go. Piece by piece. Day by day. And in letting go, I found peace. One morning, David woke up before dawn. The air felt different. Cooler, quieter, as if the world was holding its breath. Scout was sleeping at the foot of the bed, tail twitching in some quiet dream. For a while, David just sat there, watching the faint light crawl across the floorboards. He made coffee, opened the window, and listened to the sound of the countryside waking up. Birds. Wind through the fields. The low hum of life returning. It had been almost a year since the night he found Scout. A year since everything began to shift. He took out his old notebook, the one filled with fragments of his life. The pages were different now. No longer heavy with sadness. They carried warmth, gratitude, moments of quiet joy. He flipped to the first empty page and began to write. Not about loneliness. Not about the past. But about today. He wrote about the smell of the coffee. About Scout's snoring. About the sunlight falling over the road. Small things, ordinary things, that suddenly felt sacred. When he finished, he tore out one page, folded it, and placed it in an envelope. No address. Just one word on the front: thanks. He didn't know who it was for. Maybe for life itself. Maybe for the second chances that come quietly, without fanfare. Later that day, he and Scout went for a drive. The same old country road, but it looked new. Different. Alive. As the sun began to set, he pulled over and stepped out. The fields stretched endlessly before him, golden, endless, forgiving. He stood there for a long time, the wind brushing against his face, Scout sitting at his feet. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was running from the quiet. He was part of it. He was home. He looked down at Scout, smiled, and whispered, "Let's keep going a little further." And together, they walked down the road. Toward the fading light.